Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Thunder, and this is Case Closed. Case Closed. And that is our trending topics panel show with an all-star panel and moderated by Ike Ogiamian. And we have a great show for you today. The name of the show, Colorism, Featurism, and the Power of Portrayal. And here are a few of the things that we're going to discuss. True or false, perceived proximity to power is at the root of featurism. Featurism is a global phenomenon that manifests in different ways depending on the specific local power dynamics. Can you escape the notion of a racial hierarchy and create an actual melting pot? Are accusations of colorism a factor of any significance in the life of the average American black man trying to make his mark in the world? Are intersexual dynamics at all relevant to the gaining and maintaining of male agency and power? And true or false, black men have to buy into an overly racialized notion of community, as opposed to a standards-based notion of community, in order to get ensnared into the colorism conversation. What is the significance of stereotypical media portrayals of various phenotypes, and what is the correct, effective approach to bringing about any desired change on this front? We'll discuss these things and more today on Case Closed. Let's go. Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, hello, hello. Yes, Dr. Thunder, I might be needing that thing that you have in front of my face, but let's
Okay,
see.
well,
I
we'll
don't think I
see.
need it yet.
Here, one
Do
second.
I
I
need
gotta,
it?
I gotta move a couple things around. Kaizo
All right, all right.
showed
We
up
got two
here,
LERs, no Toya. I'm assuming Kaizo showed up at
and
last minute.
he's back here. There we go. We're all ready to go. Take it
All
away,
right,
Ike.
all right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. You know what it is. You know what it is. This is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday. That's this. This is the place to be. Where else would you be? 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, getting the highest level conversations on the most relevant topics. Okay, and today we're in a topic that's bears on social commentary. Okay, and it's the kind of thing that you would study if you were some kind of cultural anthropologist or cultural Marxist, or if you wanted to gaslight people. That's the way I see it. Okay, only serious way to study it is academically, or if you're trying to gaslight people about about something, the thing which we're about to get into in a second here. You want to check your audio there, Kaizo, just so we know we're good to go. Meanwhile, everybody is
What's
clicking
good?
that.
Yeah, it seems like
Okay.
Kaizo's coming through.
All right, excellent, excellent. Click that like button, share the stream. All right, you know what to do. You know what it is, and the super chat function is operational, unless Dr. Thunder turned it off. Right.
It is
We got an
fully
all-star
operational.
panel as usual. Excellent. Uh, we got Toya here. This is the first time being here on Case Closed. So, would you mind introducing yourself? A brief introduction. You got a YouTube channel and all that good stuff.
Sure, sure. So I'm Toya. I'm originally from New Jersey. I moved to Texas a little over a year ago. And I do have a YouTube channel, but I recently scrubbed it. So there's really no content on it right now, but there might be soon.
Excellent. Scrubbed YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Scrubbed YouTube channel. All right. Well, shout out to you. Thank you. It's nice to have you on. So let's start at a particular level here. Kaizo, let's start on the abstract level. Let's talk about featureism, and let's talk about this assertion here that featureism has to do with proximity to power, whereby the features of those that are perceived to have power are preferred. You take that and run with it a little bit so that we understand at least the conceptual area that we're dealing in. We're talking about featureism, and featureism has to do with your hair texture, the shape of your nose, the shape of LERs, light skin, and all that kind of stuff. And that this is preferred or not preferred depending on the particular power dynamics that are going on in the area there. Kaizo, can you give us some abstractions on there, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, featureism. I think it's good to start with that. So if you look at any societies, there's going to be obviously features. Usually, that's attributed to a certain group. Why? Because people usually do things in group terms. Economics, safety. When you're building a culture, an ethnicity, a tribe, you intermarry with each other, right? You speak the same language, so certain features will be more statistically sort of varied within you more so than other groups. So if that's the case, if you look at this sort of landscape, you put in colorism and featureism. If there is a tribe or group of people that have succeeded more so than other people, and even if the success is just dominance, that lingers. So whatever is can be attributed to that group maintains that kind of power. A simple example here we know about the white man, right? The white man, if you look at any culture in the world, everybody prefers light skin. You go to Africa, they prefer light skinned women. You go to India, it's the same thing. You won't even see dark skin models in the movies, right? And that's India, where majority of people are dark skin, right? Unless you go to the north of India, the Punjab, the Gujarati, and the sort of Persian mix, most of them are darkies in the south. So
May I interject here just for a second
yeah,
because um, you said white people and then you spread it out. May we? So it's not just whiteness being associated with power. There are other places where light skinnedness is associated with power, not
Hmm.
because of the white man, or because you're not out in the farm working, right? As a matter of fact, if you are of a
Yes.
particular class, you will be lighter skinned just because of the way the nature of bottom work versus upper work is. But go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just to do with that. So there's two elements here. Thank you for bringing that point. There is an actual preference in most human cultures to prefer women, especially who are lighter, because it shows, hey, she's a little bit more delicate. She's not really working in the sun. Even in Africa, Africans tan, right? If you come to East Africa, trust me, if you go to the north of Kenya, for example, people look like my left toe, right? If you come back to the south, people are a little bit more lighter skinned, right? So the point here is even women here in East Africa, they don't go outside. They wear umbrellas when they go outside to try to preserve that sort of lack of darkness. They take on bleach skinning, and there's no white man over here. So there is a sort of endemic sort of situation also of economics. People that go outside in the sun, work hard jobs in the farm or with the animals, they're seen as a lower class than people that stay inside and work within. So now, if you look at the globalism, right, you take on the fact that the white man is sort of colonized everybody, more or less, right, from all the way East Asia, all the way from Japan, China, into India, Americas, everywhere. He's colonized everyone to a point whereby he's left his mark. So right now, he does have the strongest what do you call it, leverage when it comes to economics and social political power. So anyways, point here is features. People would prefer certain features that the winners of that culture have, and more so the winners of the global culture. So yeah, like I said, if you come to East Africa, people are going to prefer features that is more sort of to the people of the colonizers or the Arabs, for example. And then once you go over the Arabs, it's a white man, because that white man is the most recent winner. So this is it. And also, if you're part of the culture, right? Let's say if you're a Muslim, I'm a Muslim man, apparently. So if you're also part of that culture, you are going to be subject to also the rules of that culture. So as I mentioned over here, like the Bantu girls, right? They bleach their skin to be lighter. The Kushites girls, they also bleach their skins to be lighter. There's always that proximity to the power, so they want to be as closely represented to, let's say, Muhammad, peace be upon him. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now.
Okay. So you've kind of laid down the basic abstraction there that it's about power. And a lot of times when we talk about power, it's economically driven, um, for just because of the definitions of the word, right? And whomever has won uh, geopolitically, or if it's even within a local context, the people whom are not working in the farms, whatever features are associated with that group, since they're going to be intermarried and all that kind of stuff, they're going to be phenotypically similar. That is going to be preferred for reasons which we not even need think too much about, right? So, Dr. Thunder, what do you have to say about this particular assertion here, this hypothesis that featurism has to do with proximity to power, whereby the features of those whom are perceived to have power are preferred? What do you say about that abstraction?
Man, this is so I think there's some truth to it, but I'm not okay. So in my mind, any sort of colorism seems to it must have its origins in white supremacy in some form or fashion. It must trail back to that. Now, one of the points that was raised about if you're if you work in the field, you'll be darker. If you work in the house, you'll be lighter, as it were. Um, there's truth to that. And will people intentionally try to make it look like they work in the house where there may be a an assumption of additional prestige associated Um, so yeah, so it's
The
so the,
delicacy aspect of because there are two sides in terms of preference now, right? There is men preferring women and then women preferring men. These things have to be different, right? Okay. The delicacy aspect, which is whatever is perceived as more delicate, whatever is perceived as more delicate, if a woman has it, the men will prefer that, generally speaking, unless you just like hard women, right? Which is statistically not the case. Just wanted to throw that in there, but go ahead, continue.
yeah, I mean, so I'm accommodating of that. I think my
Mhm.
perspective is accommodating of that factor, but it still seems that white supremacy has to be the thing causing folks to believe that if they're lighter in complexion, that there would be any preference, any benefit to that. So yeah, hopefully the volume of my talking is better now, Bob.
Gotcha. Now let's go to LAR next. Dr. Thunder has pushed back on the fact that, well, it's all about power and it's all about the local power dynamics. One need not put a massive broad brush on it, even though the massive broad brush was introduced by Kaiser when he mentioned the geopolitical situation and the dominance of whiteness. Hence, in recent times, going back even a few hundred years, then that'll be the dominant power situation to the degree to which there's some kind of a global media and you're not stuck somewhere. But the idea is, okay, it's all about power. But Dr. Thunder says, no, it has to do with white supremacy. So, featurism, whereby the features of those perceived to be in power is preferred, is that what it is, or is it white supremacy? LAR.
First, can you hear me clear?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, you're saying the lighter people are, they're lazier, but they're entitled to more money. I must agree. Light people are lazy. Uh, the other thing, seriously, about the power, I think it's interesting because sometimes this featureism thing is basically lazy people saying that they're better than other people because they look a certain way. Like, featureism has a thing where skill and competence doesn't apply. And, it works itself out in life where, and this works in plenty of fashions, whether it's, you could say the same thing with somebody saying they go to a school, the Asian person must be smarter because they're Asian. It's like, well, if their grades don't add up, you just gave that to them for no reason. You know, this person's tall, so they must play basketball. You just gave that to them because you figured that. A lot of the features, it comes with it. In some ways, it comes with a history of quote unquote winning or excellence. In others, it just, and I hate to say it this way, but it's the only way I can say it. The issue with featureism is it's supposed to subconsciously put fear in the people who don't have those features that they can't be better. And when your mind isn't shackled like that, it doesn't work well for the people who have those features because they're assuming that you're going to always put a governor on your skill set. It's kind of like a civilian fighting a police officer. You hold him back because it's a cop, but if you say forget it, then they're going, I never had to fight somebody for real all the way because the badge saved me. It's one of those things, but it's like it's a mental thing that I never
Mhm.
understood. But because I've heard older guys, I heard there used to be stories of older white guys asking black guys, like in a sports dynamic, do you have that mental block where you scared of white folks and you really not gonna go all the way because they white? They would have to ask that question. So, and when you met people who didn't have that block, it's a completely different story. So that's my spiel on that.
Mhm. Yeah, and we'll get back around to that. We'll get back around to that for sure as we progress in this conversation. You have added one of the, shall we say, first or second order effects, which is that for those whom or don't have the feature that is preferred, then there might be a restraint that they put on themselves. Okay. Now, Toya, when it comes to the aspect of preference, and we'll get to the truth or falseness or the actual uh, either historical, statistical to the degree to which it exists, or just studying the media to see what actually is going on. But do you think that there is a power aspect to this? True or false?
True.
Okay, you mind expanding there?
Yeah, I think my very early understandings of power as it relates to colorism were just in my own family. But then as I got older and I started to experience the world for myself away from them, I really started to kind of understand where I stood in it. And uh, although I thought LAR's story was really interesting, I can't relate, but it gave me a perspective that I guess I had never considered before. And I think that in large part for me, while I can admit that there's some power in this, I also think it's a game that you can either choose to play or not.
Hmm. Hmm. So, a game that you can choose to play or not.
Mhm.
Uh-oh. Here it is. See, the white man. White man doesn't want us talking on this topic.
Whoops.
Internet colorism.
That's right. Internet colorism. That's right.
I
But
thought
wait a
I got the
minute.
white gigabytes.
I see. I see. Let's see here. So we're going to 1 second here. I think he's probably going to come back on a different device. 1 second while we get this sorted out. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support black male media. Support independent media. So, all right, we got you back, Ike. Support
All right.
independent media. And super chats enabled. Super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor, and let's continue.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you very much, Toya. I'll just leave the camera off. Let's see if I have to do something else next, which is take my phone and move to another room. But you mentioned that it is a game that you can choose to play or not, and this dovetails with the effect that LAR mentioned, which is you can choose to put that governor on yourself, that driving with your handbrake on, or you can take off the handbrake and you can just move forward. So, Dr. Thunder, let me ask you, uh, in your personal life, forget what people say about it, forget whether you're an anthropologist or a cultural Marxist looking to study the power dynamics or whatever. In your personal life, is colorism a factor for you? Um, and then I have a quick follow-up question to that. Maybe I should ask both of them. Is it a factor for you? And how do you categorize people for whom colorism is a factor?
Okay. I think that the echo
Or
could be coming
characterize, not
from me.
necessarily categorize, but how would you characterize them? How would you judge them? Go ahead.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Um, in my own life, I don't believe that I have benefited no, let's put it the other way. Uh, I don't believe that my complexion has much to do with the way that my adversaries, the adversarial situations I found myself in. I think just being black was enough.
Okay. Now
And
let
so,
me let me dig in there because we'll get
sure.
to the aspect which you're talking about right now. But I want to talk about you. You are, and I think I know the answer to the question. It'll be no. But you, Dr. Thunder, do you go around looking at people's color or light skin, dark skin, making judgments and assessments based on that? Or
No,
okay, so you
no, I
don't.
don't.
And then this person, okay, let's call him Omar. If Omar or Keisha is going around making those kinds of assessments based on who's light, who's dark, and also worrying about whether they're too light or too dark, and maybe they're making YouTube videos about it. Who knows? How would you characterize that person psychologically, mentally, practically? How would you characterize them, or how do you think about them?
Yeah, look, it's a strategy to get something. I look. I know some women that have complained to me and have expressed to me specific stories. Uh, about how they believe that they were being further marginalized or persecuted or whatever because of their skin tone, or because they weren't being selected, because they were too dark or like this. However, in my estimation, it's mostly women that keep that stuff going. Because I don't think that men, at least a man of value, I don't know that is a factor. I've dated women that have been all over the spectrum, all over from very light all the way to very dark. And my wife is dark complected.
And by very light, you mean white. So let's be clear
here. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, folks know my story. It was never my preference, but you got to go where you're celebrated, and if you ain't got no options, where you would like, and other folks seem to be friendly and warm and inviting and stuff, then you go where you're appreciated. So, but that was never a priority, and it certainly wasn't a choice that was made because of skin color. It has that doesn't make any difference with respect to that. Fit, feminine, friendly, cooperative, submissive. Those are the things that matter. And I think a man of value is going to look at whoever it is that they're considering to be someone that's going to be developing a legacy with them based on those factors. They're looking long game, right? And so none of that stuff matters. Besides the fact that, I mean, there are obvious benefits as far as looking younger for longer of darker skinned folks. Lighter skinned folks don't age that great. I mean, that's just how it works, because melanin actually protects the skin. So actually, though perhaps people think that there is some sort of prestige or something associated with lighter skin, actually, with respect to what actually happens to you over time, having darker skin is a definite plus. It's definitely better. Back to an earlier part of the question, I don't believe that I have been more marginalized because I've been darker complected than someone that was lighter. I think the fact that I am black and I have a certain stature, I think that those have been, if people wanted to use something, they would have used those things. I don't think it would have been any any different for me personally.
And you
Um,
think that your experience is perhaps representative in the sense that, hey, and LAR brought us onto this. It's like, oh, some people might choose and I don't know what year they might be living in, but they might be still be thinking that there's an extra burden on them because they're extra dark, right? But you're saying that you're already black and it should not matter. And would you say that this is perhaps generally true, that colorism is not a factor, again, in the pursuits of a man trying to make his mark in the world? You can make his pursuits of a black man in the United States trying to make his mark in the world. It's not because you're darker or lighter. If there's anything that has to do with prejudice, it's just because you're black.
yeah, I mean, if yeah, I, I just don't. I don't think that folks are considering categories. Saying, well, I don't think that they're considering categories with that. I Now I would argue that I think women do discriminate against each other and or tease folks because they're lighter or darker. And I've heard lots of stories about uh, uh, darker complected women being aggressive towards lighter complected women, and then you have all this business about good hair and all of this kind of stuff, which is not the kind of conversation that men care about. Men, in my experience, the kind of guys that we don't talk about that stuff. I mean, basically, we just want you to wear your hair, and we want you to be fit, feminine, friendly, cooperative, submissive, and ideally, you don't have any kids. Look, I mean, it's just real basic, straightforward kind of stuff. All of that other stuff is not the kind of stuff that men are going to keep alive. So I think a lot of the insisting that it is men that are the colorists. Now, look, we know that this is not true. We know that men being colorists is not is not the case, because they have conducted actually research to this effect, where they did the same sort of testing for men and women, and the men always preferred women that looked like them, that shared their reflection. It was the women that all preferred white men. Black women, Asian women, Hispanic women, all women basically preferred Caucasian men. But the men always preferred the women that shared their own reflection. So this colorism stuff is not a matter of the men, intentionally rejecting women because of their skin color. I think it's a smokescreen to cover up some other characteristics that they are unwilling to fix. That's my belief.
We'll get there here in a second, but what you just mentioned regarding, men preferring something and women preferring something else, and it is in line with generally what men care about and what women care about. If indeed there is a point to, and whether you call it white supremacy is still about power, right? So when you said white supremacy, you did agree with the underlying premise. You're just saying that the way in which it is represented, perhaps in our global situation, right? It's still about power, and women are the ones that are going to be caring about power when it comes to preference. I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm perhaps abstracting from what you're saying. So, Kaizo, right? Uh, Evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology. Somebody just said that women are more judgmental, perhaps in this case, or women are more. Kaizo, are women more judgmental in general? Uh, Go ahead, answer that
Um,
question if you can.
okay, see, I don't think women are more judgmental in general. I think that in this space, this is a female space. Society, social capital, and um, basically your position and hierarchy in
Good.
society.
Let
So
me let
in
me let, let,
general,
me- let me make sure. Let me make sure that when you say it's a female space, so you're talking about, if you're talking about fighting in a foxhole, if you're talking about hunting, if you're talking about guarding the gates, that's typically a male space, right? But when you
exactly.
talk about social dynamics, okay, generally speaking, society after society, from time immemorial, this is more of a female space. That's what you mean, right?
Exactly, right. So, yeah, I don't want to generalize saying women are more judgmental, but in this space, of course, they are. This is where they actually, again, they're obviously weaker than us in general. So they actually thrive in social capital, right? They can, many wars have been fought because of women, and this is where they thrive. Likewise, men are going to be more judgmental in the space of, let's say, I'm from a Maasai tribe. We need to have a guard for the bombers, right? That's the housing situation to prevent the lions from coming in. We're going to be very judgmental in who's going to be able to guard, which clan are they from, what sort of capital they have, are they strong? Anyways, I'm not going to go there. So yes, in
Mhm.
this social space, women are more judgmental than men. That is correct. However, that is their nature. So I guess the point I'm making here is that you can't reason them out of this. You can't force them to change their skin as much as you can force a Kaiser to stop being dusty. It's sort of integrated into their being. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, women are going to be more judgmental. When, let's say, a baby girl or boy is born, it's going to be the aunties who's going to make comments and judgments about how light the skin is, or they would be more pretty if they X Y Z,
Mm.
right? So that is a space, and I think what you could do there is, obviously, you could create a society where, let's say, the women are keeping other women sort of away from going down the path of just down that negative path too much. But in general, that is their space, and I think that's just how they've evolved, because they're not gonna they're not gonna compete with me in physical power across history and time as they evolved, but they are gonna compete against me in social capital, right? For example, if a white girl cries and screams and claims something, like what happened to Emmett Till. Hey, society is gonna, go around it. She has that social capital. If it's me crying, people are gonna ignore me for whatever reasons, and I think that is part of the evolutionary psychology part. The lighter, obviously, the more adjacent you are to the social capital of the domineering group. In this case, I guess in America, it's going to be so-called white man. The more capital you are, the more judgmental. Your judgments are going to mean much more as well. So if you judge someone and then you express that judgment externally, it's going to have way more capital than, let's say, someone at the bottom. Keisha's going to have much less of it than Becky.
Shout out, shout out, shout out. Well, yeah, thank you for putting some context to that in terms of evolution, biology, psychology, and then it makes perfect sense given the spheres that men are concerned with and the spheres that men are going to be particular about judging other men in, and the kinds of things that women have, the space in which they play. Uh, Game changer. I want to ask you this quick question, which is the question I was asked prior, and then we'll get right back around to you. And it's a basic question as to whether you agree or you have something to add or subtract from the notion that featurism is about adjacency, proximity, perceived or real, to power, whereby the features of those that are perceived to have power are preferred. Um, what do you say about that hypothesis?
By men or women.
Uh, Women, because again, as Kaiser just kind of said here, this is they're kind of like their space. This is their thing.
Definitely, women who are attracted to power are going to seek men who have who
Women who are
appear
attracted
to
to
have.
power. What percentage of women are not? Anyways, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there exist women who want to be powerful themselves and have control over their mate. I don't know what percentage of women that represents, but there are women who want somebody, a boy toy on the couch, while they attempt to rule the world, but realize that their sociology agree don't allow them to do that. Nevertheless, that mentality exists. But the women who are attracted to powerful men, they're going to seek men who at least appear to be so. And also women who want to appear to be able to attract powerful men. They'll seek a guy with these features and pretend like she is a kept woman by this man. I've seen that happen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Now, LAR, I'm going to introduce something here that kind of dovetails with what Dr. Thunder was talking about. And you brought up this whole thing about whether or not it should be a factor in the life of a man. Okay, and I asked Dr. Thunder whether he cares about colorism. He goes around judging people, and he says no. How do you characterize people who care about colorism? He says, well, first of all, it's mainly women, and that they're using it to cover up for something. Now, I'm going to kind of create a situation and I want you to give me what you think about it. Basically, okay, so LAR, you're walking down the street, okay? And you're concerned about your reputation. To the left of the street are is the general public. These are the ones who will be judging you and whose judgments you care about with regards to your reputation. On the right side of the street is an insane asylum. And in the insane asylum, people are saying, hey, they're pointing to you like, hey, LAR is a colorist. Okay. And then if you keep walking, so goes the story. The people on the left side of the street are not gonna. They're gonna be like, "Hey, that's an insane asylum. I'm not gonna judge. Who cares?" They might scratch their head a little bit. Look, but the moment you stop, turn around to the insane asylum and start arguing with the insane asylum, saying, "No, I'm not colorist. You're colorist." That, as a matter of fact, that is going to do more damage to you than the accusation of colorism. So I'll just kind of state it in the form of a question. The response, especially given what Kaiser has said, and to the degree to which we agree that, hey, this is part of the nature of women. If you go and argue or defend yourself against the charge of colorism, you're going to do more reputational damage to yourself than the charge of colorism itself, because the people who are screaming about colorism are analogous to people in an insane asylum. And you're not crazy until you start responding to them. I'm being colorful here. But what do you say about that, Eliar?
I think the people on the right side and the left side are both in the insane asylum. Because in our society, it's interesting because we say colorism is predominantly a female thing, and I get that. But increasingly, over the last 10 years, I've seen dudes worry about color way too much. Like in ways that I never saw when I was younger. So, like the idea that we have to defend it or we're trying to defend it is something that didn't exist before. You'd be like, look, I'm dating who I'm dating. You get what I'm saying? Like, my dating history says this, that, and the third. But now people are trying to prove something. People get accused of anything, and then they're trying to prove that they're not that. And it's a catch-22. It's a lose-lose situation, because if you pay attention to it, you're going down a losing battle. If you don't pay attention to it, it's going to grow and you're going down a losing battle. So nowadays, it's just I don't like. I know, I know, ladies do the. I know people have a preference, and people don't want to say that their preference is quote unquote colorism, right? Because when you have a certain type, if your certain types look a certain way, that's just your preference. You don't have a certain type of person, you have a certain type of complexion. Um, but now I see guys like guys use colorism. It used to be a thing of the darker you are, the harder you are, the lighter you are, the softer you are. Which in essence, in fighting, it came from fighting, because the darker you are, the harder it is to see you bruise. The lighter you are, your bruises show up easily. So guys would size each other up on the basis of, the color or whatever. But now, I don't think people realize how many pretty thuggish, effeminate guys are out here now who are overly concerned about that. Like, think about the last 5 years. Think about the whole Steph Curry conversation. Think about the whole light skinned dude won a dunk contest. It's over. That didn't used to exist. It wasn't a, oh my God, Vince Carter won a dunk contest. The Dog Brothers are losing. That didn't exist. So now it's got to the point, and ladies and the guys are participating into it, and to the degree that I'm starting to believe that, and I hate to say this, I don't really hate to say this, this single mother's dominating the household has created male issues that didn't normally exist now. And now you're seeing guys act in ways that other guys would never consider. And personally, I've seen it in the last 5 to 10 years just grow and grow and grow. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Same thing as a person like me. I was born in New Orleans. In America, The rest of the country, you got to be Creole. You must be light skinned with green eyes and pretty hair. In New Orleans, that's ridiculous. But everybody's idea of it is that. Like everybody who's from Louisiana and Creole look like Beyonce. The guys believe it, the girls believe it. So nowadays, I really, I'm really having an issue with figuring this out with people because I'm seeing guys who believe true story. I'm gonna shut up. I had a time with my own son where he thought he was handsome because he was light because his mama was telling him that. Daddy, I'm handsome because I'm light and you're ugly because you're dark. This is this goes on. This is going on to a degree that people don't really fathom. So I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Okay, okay, well put. And you're making the kinds of judgments perhaps that which I would make and which men typically would make, which is, hey, if a man starts delving really deep personally into these kinds of social dynamics of whether or not they have a particular feature and blah blah blah, which we know these have nothing to do with the typical areas of male competence, then I would say that person is crazy. Similar to turning around to the insane asylum and trying to argue about whether or not they're actually colorists, pointing to the insane asylum, saying that those people in there are colorists. Now, Toya, the question on the table is this: one of the offshoots of the question is, well, men should just ignore accusations of colorism. Again, if you are not a cultural Marxist, an anthropologist, and you're studying power dynamics, then you are just going into a place where it is like you're fighting with neutrinos. It does not. It's a parallel universe. It doesn't work for you. You don't even know up or down. Kaiser's already said to us that this is a female space, and you're not going to change what women say. So is fighting against the accusation of colorism doing more reputational damage if a man engages in it than actually the actual accusation? You just go ahead and ignore it. And like Eliar and Dr. Thunder has said, go and do the things which you're supposed to do anyways, which has nothing to do with whom is calling you colorist or not. What are your thoughts about that whole stew there?
Well, I totally think that you should ignore it for the most part, but when it does come up in conversation, I think it should be you should do as much as you can to put the kibosh on it, so to speak. Because again, it's a game that mostly women engage in and keep going. And so I find that when you have a logical conversation about it, then people tend to realize, okay, this probably really isn't as big of a deal as I'm making it. I tell you what, I don't know if it's because of my skin tone, but it's not something that is of top of my mind in my day. So
Hmm. I see. Okay, okay. And what would be your skin tone, by the way? I'm not very well schooled on the various gradations. Are you light skin? Are you dark? What would you consider
I
since you
think
brought that
I
in?
think it depends on the region of the country I'm in. I know I'm in horrible lighting right now, but in Texas, people call me light skinned. I don't know why. But back home where I'm from in New Jersey, I am not light skinned.
Hmm, hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Shout out to Rachel Dolezal. I'm assuming that the BGS spot is empty because
Oh,
he's
oh,
not here. He's
oh.
not connecting. Is that is that
uh,
is that true?
well, he's just not. He hasn't clicked the link yet. I was just
Yeah.
getting ready for him.
Gotcha.
He's
Gotcha.
on
Gotcha.
his
Gotcha.
way.
Okay. So game changer. Yeah, you know the comment on the table right now, the question on the table. I started out with the whole kind of hey, if you start arguing with an insane asylum, knowing that you're not going to change the way they are or anything like that, you're just kind of causing more reputational damage to yourself. Okay, now I've separated it from if you might be somebody whom is particularly into the study of this thing and into the breaking down of it, but for the average man out there, should they be defending themselves against colorism? What are your thoughts, game changer?
Absolutely. I agree with the lady who was just speaking. I mean, you don't have to go around, changing your behavior as a result of it. However, when the argument is presented, because stupidity and ignorance spreads, you want to be able to cancel that swiftly. Definitely, this argument is really a plea to society to balance itself in the favor of a darker skinned woman, and it should be ignored. And here's what I mean when I say that. Modern Western society, they always want to balance the scale. So if they hear a squeaky wheel, they give it grease. They hear complaints of poverty and they give it welfare. They give affirmative action. They tend to want to balance the scale when somebody claims that there is an injustice. This is no different. Colorism, darkism, whatever you want to call it, is a claim for injustice, and it's a call to society to balance this injustice. And what they want, which is fine when they do it with other things, but what they are trying to balance it with now is my penis. And I will not participate in such a thing. They're saying that darker skinned women do not get enough of attention, sexual advances and things like this. They don't get enough of in resources from men like myself and the others on this panel. So they feel that we should internalize this and attempt to balance the scale, choose them over someone who may be more attractive. The same way that affirmative action, they would choose a person who may be less qualified. For the sake of balancing the scale. They want me to balance the scale with my penis, and I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry.
All right, all right, all right. You don't have enough mass there to balance the scale there, game changer. So I hear.
Okay.
But shout out to Kaizo. It seems that everyone has been saying so far that, hey, yes, don't turn to that insane asylum. But if you're sitting in polite company and it comes
Wait, I
up in the
wanna
conversation,
I wanna make a correction there. It's not that they want the penis. They want a long-term contract with the penis. The short-term contract, they get it. That's not the issue. It's a long-term contract that they want.
Well, they
okay,
want more of it. Is yeah.
Right.
I mean, I agree,
No,
but I
no,
mean, no.
we have these
What I'm saying is it's a meritocracy. My penis. And those who and it's not based on color or anything like that. It is based on the most qualified. Not, and you're not going to try to shame it like, oh, you just gave the light skinned one some. Well, she deserved it.
Can I ask you a
It's
question,
and
Ginger?
go for it.
Because obviously, so let me ask you a question, right? Let's say there's a beautiful dark-skinned girl, right? Let's say my skin tone, versus
Okay.
a very beautiful sort of Eurocentric features with a nice lighter skin from, let's say, somewhere in East Africa. Who do you choose? The same qualities, good people, both of them. Who do you go for?
It
that's
depends
not
on
fair,
which one
Kaizo. But
I'm
go
more
ahead.
physically attracted to. The one that is, the fittest, the friendliest, the most feminine.
Let's say
But
everything
Game
is
it,
changers
equal.
go with East
The
African
only
every
difference,
time. Game changer, don't fall for
the
his
only
BS. You prefer the
yeah,
Eritreans and stand by
no,
it.
no, I
Don't
do
don't let.
prefer
game changer.
Eritreans and
Yeah,
Ethiopians.
everything
Yes.
is equal
However,
apart
however,
from one of them is a little bit more Eurocentric, light skin. The other one, that's it. The fit, feminine, everything is exactly the same. Just that. That's
Hey,
no,
Ike.
no, no. If I'm
Ike, just
go for it.
just for reference, BGS is in the house. If you want
Got,
to redirect.
got, gotcha. So
Okay,
Kaizo,
but to
now
answer
answer
the
the
question,
question.
the one that's
And then
most qualified. However, East African women are more likely to be more qualified because I am more physically attracted to them. If that's your question.
gotcha.
okay. Yeah, you answered my question.
Yeah, thank you very much for standing up to you. Yeah, you almost fell for a game changer. But anyways,
Okay.
Kaizo, let me ask you about this. Just you to opine on it, and then we'll go to BGS here. Everyone has seemed to have said, if we go with my whole story of insane asylum, hey, don't turn around in the insane asylum. You're not going to change what the insane asylum does. But if it comes up in conversation, you don't want to spread ignorance as you want to kill the spread of ignorance, as Game Changer has put. What are your thoughts as to that? Is getting engaged in the defending yourself against colorism actually causing reputational damage to you, because LAR will look at you and be like, what the hell are you talking about? Why are you in this whole blah 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 light skin, which I agree with, by the way. What are your comments on that? And then we'll go to BGS.
Yeah, as there's nothing wrong with engaging with anything, right? That's actually being intellectually open-minded. The issue is lingering. So, forming a trans-temporal contract with insanity is the issue. Engaging with insanity is fine. That's how else would you know it's insane unless you poke it a little bit and see if it's gonna cut your head off. But the issue is when you form a long-term contract as if expecting change or some kind of reason outcome from it. So yeah, I'm all for no, engage with it. Make a simple, good argument and leave it there. Don't marinate. Don't let it ferment and turn into injera or banku or sourdough bread, right?
Very well put. Very well put. And just to you said something there that triggered me, and you knew I had to say it. I'm gonna say this in the sense that you know that I don't. With wisdom, one knows what not to engage with. Okay, and you know that you know exactly what I mean, right? You're an engager. You go out
Right,
there
but
and
that's
you
good
talk to
too, right?
idiots when you already
You as
knew they were
individuals.
idiots from the beginning. I have an allergic reaction from very far away from idiots and idiotic topics. But anyways, this is not all about me. BGS, what's on the table right now is, hey, defending yourself against colorism. Where does that lead? Do you actually cause reputational damage to yourself? Is it like arguing with insane people? What are your thoughts on this, sir?
It's a waste of time because colorism is a class structure, especially in the West, especially since the whites actually took over the planet. It's all around the world. It's a class structure. It's a waste of time to actually engage in it or even talk about it, right? Because everybody in the black community knows where it comes from. It comes from the women. It comes from your mothers, from birth. It's taught to you by your mothers from birth. So to even engage with it is a waste of time because they know where it comes from. Shut up. In fact, I got in a conversation with a woman about colorism a few years ago, right? And her boyfriend was your color. Okay, she's dark, and she's talking about darkism, but she's dating a guy your color. And he looked at her, okay, about colorism. He just looked at her. She was standing mouthing off to me, and he's your color, uh, and that she's engaged to him, and she's mouthing off about colorism while he was standing in front of him, to me.
Hmm.
That just
Now,
defeat her argument. It's a class
let me
system. It always has been.
let me go ahead and probe into that class thing there that
Hmm.
you mentioned
Uh huh.
from a practical standpoint, which is okay. You don't engage with it, on a conversational level, whatever. If you do care to change the class structure, and it may be a transtemporal, long-term, multi-generational, shall we say, feat, if you will, then
Hmm. It will
um,
be. Yeah.
this is a very open question, right? What is then
Hmm.
to be done? Or you just be like, "Oh, it's an individual thing, and there's no point. You do you be productive." If you see where I'm going, please comment.
Yeah, it's just like anything else, man. If you're in, if in the United States, we know what it is, right? Okay, you can ask the richest black man in the United States, which is Smith, right? He deals with it every day. He talks about it every day. Okay, it is what it is. Well, your access to money, your access to power, all this kind of stuff is denoted by the color of your skin. It is what it is. Go at least down in Brazil, they're honest about it. Okay, it's one thing I say about Brazil. They're honest about the colorism and the class structure. Here in the United States, we try to poo-poo it, especially since the 1970s. Okay, try to poo-poo it. It is what it is. It's built in. It's built into our families. Been built into our families for like the last 300 years. You're not going to get around that. Okay, basically, when colorism is really a thing, I always tell this to women because I'm rebooting my channel. I actually talked to women for like 3 years, right? This stuff always comes up, but it only comes up when you get to a certain class. When you get to I say the top 5-10% of men, then what a woman's color becomes more important because she's a representative of him, and she's a representative of him, and what she looks like and how she carries herself is more important to the people that you're around. So top 5% of men, uh, colorism is extremely important. I was talking to Dr. T. He said the exact same thing. He said he's a dark skinned man. Until he got his PhD, most light skinned women, or what we call of class, didn't even talk to him. Once he got his PhD, they flocked to him because it's about class. And I always tell women that because colorism for the vast majority of men, especially black men are date anybody. Okay, for the most part, no matter what your size is, what your color is, black men settle. So they're gonna date you no matter what, right? But at a certain level, oh no, 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 you got to look a certain way. You ever see Michael Jordan date a
Mhm.
dark skinned woman? How many NBA players you see with dark skinned women on their arm? How many celebrities you see with dark skinned women on their arm? It's class. They
So
go back to the the old bourgeoisie, right? Okay, they talk. You go back and read like our kind of people or the black bourgeoisie. They wouldn't let the light skinned kids go outside in the summertime because they didn't want them to get too dark. Why do you think that is?
very well put there, game. I'm sorry, BGS. You're agreeing with one of the first points that we made here, which is that basically this whole featurism thing, if you want to back out, abstract outwards from just pure colorism, if you
Uh-huh.
want to make it a global phenomenon, the
It
featurism
is.
is tied to adjacency to power, whereby
It
the
is.
features of those whom are perceived to have power are preferred. Um, I want
And
to
but
ask Toya a
in
question.
my, no, in one I want to make one more point real quick, right? Okay,
Okay.
you're a STEM guy, right? Okay, you're a STEM guy. Okay, in
Hmm.
biology, what is a female's most important job, especially when it comes to genetics? What do you think it is?
Hmm. Uh, d- I don't know. Tell me, selection,
The,
right?
the, selection, but selection give her offspring the best chance of success in any
Hmm.
environment, right? What is she going to choose,
Hmm.
especially in a white dominated environment?
You're gonna choose whatever is adjacent to power. Yeah, the feature. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
100%.
yes. I don't care if it's a bacteria. I don't care if it's a antelope, a lion. She's going to pick the best genes to give her offspring the best chance to survive and thrive in any environment. Uh, uh, Human females are no different all over the world.
Thank you, sir. Toya asked I asked Dr. Thunder a question about his personal life and whether colorism is a factor with regards to his judgments of others and selection and whatnot. And he kind of went through his history of dating white women and whatnot. But uh, so let me let me ask you, Toya, and you can answer it in whichever way you will. How is color, whether in terms of judging other women and whatnot? I'm asking you the same questions I asked to Dr. Thunder. Is it a factor in your personal life, your personal assessments of things, and how do you characterize? And I know you've answered the second part previously, but how would you characterize the people for whom this is a concern, a preoccupation, a transtemporal contract, as Kaizo put it? How would you characterize these people who are, shall we say, obsessed with colorism?
Well, it's not really a consideration for me. I do have a preference in terms of dating. I love a dark skinned black man, but above all else, he has to be a black man. I'll just say that. Um, and I've loosened up on that preference of necessarily dark skin recently in recent years, but I think it's really not a consideration for me because I feel such a kinship amongst us no matter what our skin tone is. And my family is very much a myriad of shades. So um I just think that when people start talking about having a preference over one versus the other or keeping a bloodline light skin, for example, for which I do have some experience knowing people like that, I tend to get a little uneasy because it's a moot point in my opinion. So, my stance on it is that again, people who hold themselves to some sort of standard or like what BGS was saying, I'm aware of that being in existence in terms of class. But when you take that out of the equation, then what are we really talking about?
Hmm. Very well put. Very well put. So
Can
let's get
can I
into
can I can I
go ahead.
ask a?
Go ahead.
I want a follow up question for BGS, and the question is: since it's obvious that colorism is um, this is a this is the woman's domain, as it were. Why is it that there is so much in the black community with our women claiming that black men are the real colorists?
Because
You read my mind, Dr. Thunder, but go ahead, BGS.
black women project. Okay, black women project.
Mm,
Well, number two things. Let me be honest, man. Can I be honest for a second?
sure.
Black women lie and they project. They know exactly where it comes from. They lie. But what black women really, all women want to be the most preferred, their skin type, their phenotype, their body type to be preferred over any other woman. That's female competition. It's female
What they're
competition.
looking for,
But
Dr. Thunder, is they're looking
can
for.
I finish? Can I finish,
Oh, I thought you were
Kaiser?
finished. Okay. I
No, I
thought you were
was
finished.
not.
My mistake.
Thank you. But the thing is, if you look at the advertisements and the women they pick to be their icons, do they look like really dark chocolate skinned women for the most part? Look at Ebony. Look at the advertisement that they advertise to black women, right? For hair, for skin treatments, for shampoo. Are those dark skinned women that you see on those advertisements? You know, advertisers only pick what's attractive to their target audience, right? And you know that as a musician, you pick songs and stuff like that that's gonna vibe with your target audience. Same thing with advertisers. Do you see a whole bunch of dark skinned women on those advertisements?
Mm.
Go ahead, game changer.
Go
What were
ahead,
you going
game
to add
changer.
to the?
Yeah, so I agree with BGS when it is a lie, and it's basically a lie to create a sexual marketplace affirmative action. As I was describing before, I think that what BGS was saying is true in the sense that they're projecting, they're lying, but the ends is just that they value the validation that comes with being at the top of the sexual marketplace hierarchy, and they're willing to say anything that's necessary to get there. It's unfortunate but true. As far as power structure goes, I don't really think. Well, that's a separate point. Uh, I just want to end on that one because LAR has something.
Yeah, LER.
To what BGS just said, I was gonna say, you could use the example of the series Savage Beauty on Netflix and that Riches on Amazon, where one of the points they were trying to do with, because it was like beauty companies in both of them, like Africans, it's like Africans and South African and Africans in London, if I'm correct, and they would both had beauty lines, and one of the things they had to do was put somebody, they had to choose somebody dark or light to be the face of their company, and that was an issue along the way. And I think when it comes to like when it comes to us and these the class thing, I get it. The preference thing, at times I really like with guys, I really don't get it because like I've said it many times, we throw our preferences out the window if she thick.
Yay.
So
Thick
you
is a
know,
preference.
yeah, exactly. But people bring all that color. Look, man, I needed to be, but she thick though. It's
It's
like,
class. It's class, LAR. It's class. Upper class men don't think that way.
I get that, but I get what you're saying on that end. But since the vast majority of men are upper class, it
Uh,
comes off, you know, everybody in the middle and below, like, yeah, I would do that, but she got all that down there. So,
All right, Dr. Thunder, I have a subtle question for you here, and it's within
Sure.
this realm here of within the black community. Let me take a step back to something you mentioned earlier. You said, fit feminine friendly, is music cooperative, all that kind of stuff. That's what should matter, right? We know, generally speaking, if one is shopping for these particular attributes, uh, it's in short supply in certain places, more abundant in other places. You said, hey, if you were not married and you were still in the scene, you would be a passport bro, probably, like if you were shopping for that kind of a thing. Okay.
Yep.
So what I want to ask you here, and the reason why it's kind of subtle, is has to do with that being forced to engage in the colorism thing, or almost falling like Game Changer did when Kaizo trolled him about preferring light-skinned Ethiopian women, is a race is a far is an artifact of racial standards where it's like, okay, I want to keep it within the group. I want dark skinned babies, I want black babies, all that kind of stuff. So if black women are now talking about, oh, you're not picking me, then you're more forced to engage that conversation, as opposed to, who gives a f, I'm looking for fit, feminine, friend, blah blah blah, I'm going to get whatever color I want, it doesn't matter. um is there an aspect here where it's like, and if I were to ask the question directly, which is one of the questions that you read in your opening statement, do you have to be overly focused on the racialized point of view of community, right, as opposed to a standard based, principle based, which would be, the principles would be, fit, family, blah blah blah, in order for you to then get ensnared into this conversation, and then perhaps get shamed into, oh, you see, you just want a white woman, then you have to explain yourself. Is what I'm asking, does it make sense?
Yeah, I I think you have to be aware of it. But I don't play into that stuff. And I remember you know a lot of the stuff that people get called. So if you date a white woman, they call you a sellout, and you're a traitor, and all of the goofy stuff that they say. Um, but the only way that actually matters to you is if you actually care what they say, what they think, right? And at least it's there's a similar thing going on with Passport Bros. So if 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 you have already been sort of rejected and not been the priority of your community, and so then therefore you get to the point where you become frustrated enough to say, you know what, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach, whatever, then uh, what really are they going to say to you that's going to get you to just say, you know what, I know I had a bad experience. I think I did, at least. But you know what? You shaming me. That's the thing that's going to cause me to come back. I don't think it matters at that point. I think they're already gone. They're done. And most of this talk is not really about trying to get you to come back. It's more about trying to condition the rest of people to know that, hey, if you step out of line, we got something for you. It's more of that kind of thing.
Go ahead, game changer.
Thank you. I think that women really are starting to realize with men's new behavior that a woman's opinions, the way men value a woman's opinion is depending on how attractive they are. Meaning that an ugly woman's opinion is far less valuable than an attractive woman's opinion. So when they spew it at you, men assess like, how much should I care about what she thinks? And now that they are starting to realize that it is really hurting them, that when they say, oh, you shouldn't leave, and we look and it's like, well, how hot are you? How much should we care what you think? So it's really putting their opinions into perspective. It's not holding much weight. And even if an attractive woman is giving this opinion, like say with the colorism thing, you know um an attractive dark skinned woman tries to convince you to tries to shame you into taking something or into preferring a certain thing. But a more attractive light skinned woman is saying, no, come this way. You're going to go where your penis points, and that is to the more attractive woman. So it's a new realization that modern women have to adjust to, that their opinion is tied to their ability to attract a mate. The value of their opinion, I should say, is tied to their ability to attract a mate.
The value of their opinion in the minds of men, 100%. Kaizo, and let me go to Kaizo and ask, because you're a way more self-centered person, perhaps the The second most self-centered person in this panel will be you, Kaizo. So the question here is, I asked Dr. Thunder. It's a subtle question, but let me rephrase it in certain terms. There's the SYSBM, and then there's the SY, I believe, CBM about the community. And that community talk is really what I'm getting at here. And the community
Hey,
talk, to do, especially,
one second, Ike. Toya has to go. Could you address a question to Toya first before she has to split?
yeah. So, Toya, do you want to react to this particular question here, which is on the table about everyone has been saying so far that what their preference is. You have talked about, black men and all those other kinds of things. Um, and this is a provocative question. Do you? How important is that, this community thing, this abstraction of a community, this black thing, or that phrase people use, black love? To me, it sounds like crazy fantasy fairy tale stuff, which but that's just me. Okay. And I'm wishing to coax a reaction out of you here. What are your thoughts about this notion of community and keeping it pure? And because is it not just a way of the people in an asylum forcing you to engage with them because the asylum is filled with black people or something like that?
My preference isn't necessarily in respect to furtherance of the community, in so much as it is that it's me protecting my mental peace. Um, I find that the kinship of brothers in my community is where I find the most passion and love. And so that's why that's my preference. The community aspect of it is a byproduct more so than um, anything that I'm keeping at top of mind. So I hope I've answered your question. Um, but that's just it for me. I don't think it's a fairy tale. Um,
Would you date a
I,
short
I'm
rich
not.
guy?
Would I date a short rich guy? A lot of short guys like me, so yes, I would. I'm 5'8" and I love heels. It's fine. It's totally fine. If you want to climb, go ahead.
Well, there you go, Kaiser. And yes, Toya, you answered the question very well. Thank you for your inaugural appearance on this panel. It's been a pleasure. Go ahead and enjoy the rest of your evening. Shout out to you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having me.
That
Um,
See
word
you later, Toya.
pleasure is the word pleasure is a bit of a simp word because it basically means please her. You guys never thought about that.
so, Kaizo, all right, let me ask you about this community thing. Okay. Um, pleasure, pleaser, not bad. Let me ask you about this community thing. You saw how Toya answered it. I'm being provocative by saying what I actually believe. It's not that I'm inflating something. You know my solipsism and my seeming selfishness. Okay, this idea of community being tied in some kind of a racial way, is that a trap that men are just waiting to fall into? Should men be more like Game Changer that says, hey, it's about, you know, this compass over here, or have a set of principles like Dr. Thunder has listed? And in this, is this whole SYCBM thing, for example, because somebody actually came up with it. I don't know who came up with it, but they did come up with it. And they're using that community word, and it is a black community, not a community of standards, not some kind of raison d'etre or charter that we've agreed to, and then that's what we're standing by. It's a color thing. Comment on that, if you will. Do you adhere to the color thing, or do you go wherever based on the standards, based on whatever Kaisorian empire you were trying to build?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I don't care about color at all. Actually, my girlfriend is light skinned, and I even told her from the beginning that's not my type. It's just that she happens to be someone I like. Because
See, these brothers come in here and they claim that they're not colorists. They don't care about color, but then they got a skinned woman. It's like, come on, man.
You see what
wait,
I'm
wait, I'm
talking
gonna
about, Doc?
defend myself.
You feel
I
me,
didn't say I
Doc?
was not.
You feel me? They're still in the matrix, right? Just the opposite side of the matrix, right? You feel me?
Yeah.
Right, right. But I need to clarify. I didn't say that I'm not colorist. Exactly. I am colorist. I actually prefer dark skinned women. It just happened that my girlfriend was a light skinned woman.
Anti-colorist, huh?
Right.
Right, right. I'm a reverse colorist. However, okay, but
Right.
Oh, yeah, there's all kind of corners in the matrix, sir. Go ahead, Doc. Stop laughing, Doc. Hey, Doc. I got one thing. I'm not gonna do it on here, but I got one word for him, but I'm not gonna say it on here. Okay.
All right.
okay, but let me explain how I usually like choose a woman. So yeah, so color is again, I do prefer dark skinned women on a Cushitic woman. So I have a very unique preference. She has to be very dark skinned, and then she also has to be a specific race. She has to be a Kushite. That's my preference. Or a Bantu, a
And
Kenyan
the
Bantu.
Kushitics would be one of those, for example, for let's say if you're in the United States and you wonder what that is, that would probably be one of those Sudanese model types, really dark, right? With their
Yeah, exactly. Those are
dipped in
the original
chocolate. Yeah,
Kushites. Exactly. The
yeah.
super dark,
Mhm.
really, really black women. That's my preference. So yeah, if I can't find that, I gotta find obviously I gotta cope.
Blurple.
Right, right. But anyways, for me, it's mostly features more than color. But if I could get my colorway, I prefer the darkest possible, like that shiny, deep, dark blue. The one that just shines in the sun. That's my preference. But if I can't find it, I gotta cope. So then I look for features, and the features I like is pseudo Eurasian features. So something like let's say LAR's features. That's my preferred features.
I knew you were gonna.
Say, bro. Yeah,
No homo.
yeah.
No homo.
No, 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 not
Kaizo
like that, not
is
like that. I mean, as in,
Eh,
it's
obviously,
on everybody on the panel.
well,
yeah,
yeah, the LR is not quite passe blanc, but he knows people that are.
Look, man, don't get all Jeffree Star on the panel, dog. I'm not feeling it.
yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, go ahead.
in other words, on the east coast of Africa, basically they're blended, and that's what he's trying to
Yeah,
say. He prefers blended
exactly, yeah.
features. Yeah,
And
I
East
get it. I get
African,
it.
and
I
and
just
that
wanted.
and,
that
and, and, and Louisiana, especially southern Louisiana, is very blended as far as features are concerned.
yeah. So
Hmm.
exactly, East African features. That's my preference.
And you
So
are
That's
East
but
African, so that makes sense.
say that again. And that's why I became a passport bro in East Africa. I get all what I want. So
You are an East
yeah.
African, even though you
Oh
don't
yeah,
like
okay. I'm
categorizing
also
yourself
East
in any
African.
particular way.
Right, right. But I mean, I came here because of the
Okay,
women,
okay.
right?
By way of
Yeah.
Britain.
I don't think it's a. I mean,
Yeah,
because
yeah. I don't.
yeah, I mean, it's not really because he's East African. I mean, I'm East Oakland, and I like Ethiopian women.
Hey,
Yeah, no, well, okay, that's a different dynamic altogether. Game changer.
No, I think that they're just beautiful generally. Like, I mean, I don't think that it has anything to do with where a person is from.
Yes, it does. It does.
So
For me, it's
I do want to
easier
Dust.
say about.
because yeah. Go ahead.
I do
I just
want to
want to shout
say
out
that.
this. I'm sorry. Hold on, game changer. We just got a super chat coming in. I just happened to have spotted it as it came up, so might as well just handle it while it's there. Dust T Nuts, thank you very much. Okay, for the Dusty Nuts, salt dusted, Himalayan salt dusted, lightly dusted nuts out here for your pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. He has a $5 super chat and he says, "Dark skin,
This stream is
small
crazy. You're
waist."
attracting some very strange people out here, but shout out to them, man.
Yeah, but
Where,
go ahead, game changer. What were you gonna say?
where you're from, we're strange. Yeah, this is ordinary for us.
The community piece is really just another tactic in order to shame men into their vaginas. Vaginas should not require other tactics. Like a woman's sexuality, that should be the only thing that's necessary. That should be enough to entice a man into making them your primary sexual preference. Unfortunately, for so many black women, particularly darker skinned black women, it's not enough, and they have to use all type of tactics in order to do that. Nobody ever says that they have to do something, that their mating choices should be, for the community. You don't get into a relationship thinking, I am sacrificing myself for the community. The relationship should have other appeals other than something that you
So I have a
unwillingly
question,
do.
game changer.
Go for
Then
it.
why do you judge women for preferring, what's that guy, Tyrone and those guys, if you
I don't.
yourself don't want to adhere to those rules? Oh, okay, you don't judge them. Okay.
No, no. I know that Pookie Ray Ray argument exists. No, it doesn't really bother me if a chick prefers that particular type of guy.
So why are you in the manosphere
Game
then? Because
changer.
isn't the manosphere
Game
all trying
changer. Wait,
to?
hold on, Kaizo. Game changer. You're talking about. Let me just ask you this directly. To put some kind of a, because you're saying should, it should not, and it should not. Um, if you can give some kind of quantity as to it, because there's such a thing as people men saying for the culture, right? Um, Keisha for the culture, whatever it may be, right? Is there a proliferation of this attitude? Is it over proliferated? Is it, if you get my question here, you've said what it should be, that it should not be a consideration and whatnot, but there is that thing in the minds of some men that say, hey, for the culture, right? Comment on that, if you will, from a perhaps quantitative aspect, if you have any data whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't have any data on that. However, I do, just anecdotally speaking, notice that a lot of Black men do get with women based on community obligation and not physical attraction and not even compatible personalities. They just do it just to say that I am with a Black woman. And that's unfortunate because that doesn't yield a productive community at all. Especially when you have one person producing for that community and the other person seems to be consuming from the same community. That's not how you build a community. So, unless it's reciprocated, which it's not, that mentality is not going to work to the betterment of the community and it's not going to work to the betterment of the individual Black man.
And Kaizo, I know you wanna come for the manosphere writ large, generally speaking, insofar as but you'll get an opportunity to do that in a second here. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Okay, go ahead and drop that super chat. Go ahead and like and share the stream. You know where it is. You know what it is. 4 p.m. Eastern time every Sunday. Case closed. It's the place to be. All right. Now, BGS, you came in and you kind of explicitly stated the class aspect. We started out the conversation talking about the power dynamics, that featurism writ large is about power dynamics. It manifests itself depend on the local power dynamics, whether it be white supremacy power dynamics or whatever, or working in the farm versus working in the
Right.
house.
Right.
And also for women, there's an aspect of whatever seems to be more delicate, and that's culturally determined. Whatever seems to be more delicate is going to be preferred, and if lighter skin seems more delicate, well, then there it is. That's what it's
It's
going to
not. It's
be.
not.
Then let's
It's
move
not.
out.
It's not about delicate. Okay. It's not about delicate. Okay. It's about people's comfortability. Is the core. As far as the societal structure is actually determined. Go down to Brazil, you get better jobs, you get better access, you get better schools, you get better access the lighter skin you are, the closer you are to white. Same thing in most of Latin America is the same way. How many dark skinned newscasters you see coming from Latin America?
Not many.
Not many, but because because
Yeah.
because the Las Castas or the class structure is there according to color. It is what it is, right? America, where we actually hide it a little bit, we mask it a little bit in liberalism, but it's the same thing. In the black community, it's the same thing. Okay, uh, amongst our group, we have what we call the light skin trifecta, right? Uh, skin, eyes, and hair, right? I'm from the South,
Hmm.
right? Well, I'm from Louisiana, so basically, LR can tell you exactly what I'm talking about, right? A newborn baby comes amongst a whole bunch of women in the family, right? What do they check for? Hair texture, skin color, and eye color, the trifecta, right? It's automatic. Every one of my kids, every one of my grandchildren, right? You bring them to the elders, females. First thing they do is check the hair. What kind of hair is the kid's gonna have, right? What color eyes is the kid's gonna have, and they look at the behind the ears and the cuticles to see what color the kid's gonna be. Automatic. It's
Hmm.
been built in since I've been alive. I've seen that with I've seen that with my baby daughter, with my baby sister, right? Uh, my mother, I said my mother said she's gonna be dark. I said, asked my mother, how do you know? She said, look at the back of her ears. I was 7 when I learned that. It's automatic.
Let me ask you something, but first, let me go ahead and Dusty Nuts has dropped another super chat. Shout out to you. Shout out
Shout
to
out to
you.
Dusty
This is
Nuts.
$10 this time, and saying the stretch marks, freckles, and small moles count for anything. If anyone should be able to discriminate with anything, it should be their preferences. And by the way, so when it comes to Thank you very much, Dusty
What
Nuts. And
what what are your how do you learn your preferences? Okay, you're born as a child with there's a tabula rasa. How do you learn your preferences?
Yeah.
now, when he says allowed, then well, no, is there allowed or did I read that? Should be able to, right? In other words, he's talking about the
Hmm.
freedoms and your
Yeah.
rights. Yeah, sure. No one is gonna handcuff you for choosing what you please. Yeah, so for
Hmm.
sure, 100%. And
You're gonna be
the
judged, but
nature
yeah.
nurture, what is determined and what is not determined. One need not get into that conversation, but when we get into the individual and what they get allowed to do, able to do, yeah, sure, yeah, you should be able to do that. BGS, let me ask you something about the media. You
Hmm.
brought up the media aspect when it comes to advertising and whatnot.
Hmm.
So the people are targeting women, so they show women what women want to see.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and perhaps some men may be concerned with how maybe light skinned or dark skinned people are dark skinned men are portrayed in the media writ large. I'm not too sure about that. Maybe you have some context in there as well. But the general question is, you can comment on representations of such. You've already mentioned one
W-
uh, in the advertising side for women.
You,
Is
you,
there
you,
anything going on
you,
for men?
when did okay, I'm gonna tell you because I'm a boomer. When did black men actually become preferred? Start to become preferred. There's one single person, one single moment. When did black men actually start to be preferred over light skinned men
I don't know. Was
in
that was
America?
that Wesley Snipes? I don't know.
Michael Jordan,
Oh,
Mm.
Michael Jordan.
85. Michael Jordan was 6'6", bald headed, Nike. He was the icon of the world. That's when it started to change. Before that, it was Prince, it was DeBarge, it was light skinned men with wavy hair.
Now, was there anything that you would advocate? Is there any work to be done in this particular space of like, oh, we should do something about the portrayal? Okay, and again, within this particular narrow space of colorism, not the general, whether it's criminality or any other the other kind of stuff in terms of media portrayal. Is there anything there, or is it just like it's pointless, as we've said before, about colorism
It's
writ large, as far
it's
as
it,
men
it,
focusing on it?
the only way to battle colorism is learn where it comes from and understand that it's a class system. If you want to dismantle it, dismantle it. But the thing is, you can't dismantle it by pointing fingers. Stop lying about it and admit where the stuff comes from and who and how it's actually projected. Women have to dismantle the colorism because they feed this to their children. I have a lighter skinned daughter and darker skinned daughter. Okay, I know how it works because it works in my family. Okay, my mother, my sister is dark skinned, but my sister doesn't have the same problems because guess what? My mother didn't actually advertise, even though she knows what it is because she came from a family that had all kinds of skin colors. It didn't matter to her what color her children were. Okay, so she doesn't have the same kind of consciousness about color that my daughters and the woman I had kids with, because her mother and her grandmother are basically the biggest colorists on the planet. Okay, they don't like themselves because they've been taught not to like themselves, but that is projected by the woman. I can tell you exactly. If Tori was here, she could tell you the reason that she doesn't have any preference about color is because her mother didn't teach it to her.
Mm.
The can I have the mic, please?
You
Sure.
sure
Go ahead.
can.
All right. The best way to counter colorism for a woman is to be the best B word. Be the best B word that you can be for me, and that will counter colorism. You see, just like the way to counter racism or the way people perceive your race is to be the best. So, like, if they perceive your race to be, intellectually inferior, then be the best intellect to change the perception of your race. Dark-skinned Black women need to be better B words. Once again, they need to cook better. They need to be more feminine. They need to be slimmer, and they need to generally please my penis better. And once this happens, then people will associate positive things to their behavior on a constant way. When we see darkness, we will remember the last experience, the last positive experience that we had with a darker skinned woman. And it would erase any stigma. But until you do right by my penis, everything they attempt will fail.
Doomed to failure, says he. Now, let me go ahead and shout out to the panel. Shout out to those listening. Shout out to those in the chat. Okay, it's been a rather productive and fruitful conversation so far. Let me ask this by way of kind of last round question here. And it's going back to something that we talked about before with regards to a man trying to make a mark in the world. And Kaizo, start us off here. Is or are intersexual dynamics relevant, or how is it relevant? Okay, so true or false? Okay, or in general, what do you think about this statement? Are intersexual dynamics at all relevant to gaining and maintaining of male agency and power? Do you have to settle something with the insane asylum or with the women of the community, or whatever, in order for
You
you
got
to be
simple. You got
powerful?
you have to simplify that one, man. That is too complex. You got to simplify that.
Let me see if Kaiser can help us simplify it. He claims to have the biggest brain on earth. Uh, so
No,
start
no, not
start
the
us off.
biggest, the most well organized functional brain, right? Organization is more important than size. But anyways,
Okay, good. Organize it for, but basically, let me just restate it again. Intersectional dynamics relevant to the gaining of power and male agency. Can you just go out there and be Genghis Khan and not have to settle anything with, let's say, for example, you're completely unshackled from this community, racial, whatever, blah blah blah, and you're free and you're going to be Superman. And you don't have to talk to anybody or listen to anybody, whether they be in an asylum or whatever. Is it in how important is it? What percentage of men, the normies, the ham and eggers, probably have to be tied down to earth
How,
and deal with some nonsense,
how,
and perhaps some other
how,
people can be supermen.
how, what did Victor say? Give me the boy seven, I give you the man. Okay, you can. It's very difficult to break your initial social training. That's your bios. Okay, now can you modify it? Sure, but thing is, can you break it? No.
So what percentage of men would you say, Kaizo? And by the way, there's a reason I'm asking that, right? Or let me ask you, for you, okay, are intersexual dynamics relevant to your gain of power and maintaining of your male agency, Kaizo?
well, for me, obviously, no, none of that stuff matters, right? Like, obviously, the woman I chose has nothing to do with my culture or my community. She's actually from a clan of Burji, right? That's a fake Oromo, right? I'm a real Oromo. Shout out to us. Anyways, that's a slight joke there. Point is, for me, no, none of that stuff matters at all. But then again, it depends on if it matters now or in the future. I plan on being a president of this country one day, right? So yes, to an extent, actually, this might do me benefit by marrying outside of my so-called community. If I will actually be, amassing more votes from the other communities. So in my case, actually, it helps me by sort of being dissimilar to my own tribal affiliations in this case. Over here, it's not race; it's based on tribe. So if that's the case, it benefits me. But in general, I think for men, it depends, right? Are you someone who is inculcated to a culture? Are you someone who's intersectional, right? Or are you someone that is already that beast, that lone wolf that does things in his or her own path? I'll give you an example. If you're Ike, no, it won't make a difference because the sort of workplace environment that you're part of is more of intellectual, it's more technical. Okay, show me your work kind of logics, right? You're engineer, so it's not going to make a difference in actually uplifting you. However, if you're inculcated in the realm of the culture, then of course, depending on who's supporting you in that culture, of course, it's going to be something that's significant. If let's say you are that guy who got caught for cheating on his wife, Derek something, right? Jackson. Like, if you're that kind of type
Hmm.
of person, using the
Yeah.
community to
If you're
actually
nasty.
amass money, fame, and wealth, then of course it's going to work negatively against you. So yeah, it depends on your goals, how you inculcate yourself in
Yeah, it
community,
depends on what your
society.
bread is buttered
In
in a certain sense. I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you there because I dropped off. But Game Changer and then BGS, LAR, and then Dr. Thunder is going to close us out. Again, we've kind of put some parameters here. We're breaking down the question as BGS suggested. BGS already mentioned that, look, there is a general rule that says, hey, there's certain things that are determined, certain things that are culturally determined, there's certain things that are nurture based, and you cannot break it. You may be able to modify it. So the intersexual dynamics, are going to be part of something you need to contend with regards to male power, male agency. Okay. What do you say about that as opposed to what I say, which is not necessarily true for everybody, but for me, Well, it's like and again, I know I'm talking about a very small percentage of people, but hey, whatever. For me, it should not matter at all what a woman or the group of women are saying, thinking, believing, preferring. To hell with them. What do you say, game changer?
Well, as I was stating before, I mean, some women's opinion matter more than others, and for the reason that I stated before. So yeah, it does. I mean, but also it's a negotiation as far as a man's action. It's like, okay, um, what do you offer that the next group of women don't? I want more black men to start thinking about it that way. And a lot of them will say community, but I mean, are you offering a functional community? Will you be a good mother, to the kids? Will you offer a sustainable household to which the kids are raised? I mean, we have to understand that it's a competition. It's a complete competition, and that they are competing for what we have to offer them. We're not going to give affirmative action. We're not going to give, special consideration. Well, somewhat special consideration, but not enough to warrant, the complete deference that exists in between the women of the community. We have to look at it from a practical standpoint. Um, yeah, period.
Mhm.
I hope I answered your question. I had a little trouble
No,
understanding
yeah,
that for
yeah,
a
yeah,
second.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You did, yeah, you did. And as we let me get to BGS now, and let me kind of put a particular aspect on the question for you here. If the women within your community are not cooperating with regards to you and the gaining of your power, do you have to bring them to the table, if you will?
No,
Okay, is
no.
that a prerequisite to your advancement, or can you just go get it and then go get other women, or women are a byproduct anyways? It doesn't freaking matter anyways. The male dominated space, the killing of the lions or the fighting of the war or whatever, has nothing to do with whether your women support you. It's better if they do. If they're not cooperating, then you don't have to bring them to the table. So it's a kind of a different aspect to the question there, but you can answer it in whichever way you will.
Well, the society survives by the cooperation of both parties, both sides, right? You can't. There's no society that exists that's successful that doesn't have the cooperation of both parts of both halves of society. The women have to weigh in. If it doesn't weigh in, your society will die. Okay, so intersectional dynamics are the most important thing because you have to have a kind of an agreement between the two. Okay. Now you're a STEM guy, right? So if you just like any experiment, right? It depends on the conditions that the experiment is actually conducted in, right? Like some chemicals, some alloys, some things will not survive or not do well under certain conditions, right? So what do you have to do? You have to put that particular substance in the conditions that it will thrive in. Same thing with dynamics as far as male is concerned, right? It's what passport bros tend to have found out, right? If you're not doing well in the conditions that you're in, what do you have to do? You have to change your conditions. Either go to another city, go to another state, or in this case, go to another country where the conditions are conducive to your success, right? Anything else,
Hmm.
just like anything else, right? So let's say like my brother down here, right? Okay, reason you can actually go to someplace else and not have the preferences because from what I'm hearing, you're actually brought up in a different culture. You're actually brought up in the UK or Europe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Y- You were. So basically, you going back to an African country. Guess what? You were not inculcated or indoctrinated inside that culture. So you're outside of it looking in. So you don't
True.
have the same preferences that somebody inside the culture would you?
That's a good point. No, I don't. You're right.
It's like if I'm from America, if I came to your country, would I have the same preferences that somebody inside your country would?
Probably not.
Probably not. So the thing is, what I said is that you give me the man at seven, I give you the man. Give me the boy at seven, I give you the man. Your initial bias, you don't have to believe me. You can go look this up, right? From 1 to 7, that is your formation of your worldview. Okay, your initial BIOS on a computer, right? And then all the other software is layered on top of that. But you can never change that. Any
Right, but
psychologist will
my
tell you you
preference
can't change.
was the white woman, but I overcame that. I fought it hard. Now I prefer my black woman.
In other words, what did I can say? You can modify it. but it's still there. You
So
can modify it, but
BGS,
it's
let
still
me
there.
let me let me let me hold your feet to the fire here. You brought up
Go ahead.
passport bros. Passport bros are saying, "Hey, these women are not, what I want. I'm not going to negotiate with them, bring them back to the table. As far as my little empire or my family goes, I'm going to go
Uh huh.
find it somewhere else." So, how are you? So you are agreeing to an aspect of the notion that you don't need to bring the women along. You go create a situation for yourself, right?
If the thing is either one or two things, either you bring the women along and change them, if you're going to stay inside the same environment that you're in, or you change your environment. It's always been the case. Now you can change your environment because you're going to a different culture and embedding
Hmm.
yourself into a different culture where the parameters are in your favor. But that is a very small select group of men, and that's a different choice. Okay, either you adapt to the conditions where you're in, you know, or you change your conditions.
Very well put. Overall, in general, we're biological beings. We are sexually dimorphic. You're going to need both sexes, and also we are social creatures. Hence, the participation of both is going to be necessary, even from the family
Hmm.
unit all the way through. So that generality is true. And then you mentioned about the different conditions within which one finds oneself, right? So hey, you might
Hmm.
have to change your environment. It is a choice at that level. Individual choice goes where. Okay, so very well answered there. LAR, same question. Intersexual dynamics and then male power and male agency. Do you have to bring the women to the table? Do you have to wait for them? It's a personal thing now. What are your thoughts personally? Or is it, can you just go do your thing, if you will?
I think if you wait for somebody or something to happen, you're gonna die waiting. Um, I think what winds up happening if you got a preference, if you search, long, hard, and wide for whatever you looking for. I think the downside would be your physical preference doesn't actually equate to actually a good situation. You can get what you want and um and not have what you need. But as far as the whole dynamic of guys, you can't consider it's a hard pill to swallow. Can you call yourself a man if you're waiting on something to happen for you when you're able bodied and have an able mind to go make it happen yourself? And I think that's the same premise when it comes to dating. Um,
Mm.
I don't think you can, you know, I don't think you can fail up in life in the dating market. And I don't actually think your preference is sitting there waiting for you to come um, swoop them up because other people with the same preference are, are competing or trying to make themselves available for that same preference. Might not be the same person, but the same preference. So that's just my two
Hmm.
cents.
Very well put there, LAR. LAR is showing his introvert side. Well, LAR strikes me as an introvert regardless. But by what I'm saying is, you're typically about the group and the people and whatnot. But yeah, I'm liking this kind of uh, individual has to do what he's got to do, and especially as a man, you cannot play social dynamic stuff a lot. If you sit and scream, as Kaizo mentioned earlier, like a white woman, no one is going to listen to your scream. No one is going to listen to your complaints. If you wait, as you said, you're gonna die. I like that. So, Dr. Thunder, um, you're gonna close us out as usual, and the question is intersexual dynamics being relevant to a man gaining power as an individual. Generally speaking, it will be preferred from a group level that there is cooperation. But if you are finding some difficulty, is the priority to bring people to the table or for you to do what you got to do?
Yeah, I think if you are having to bring people to the table, that already shows that you're in the weak position. you think about that. So it's kind of like the difference between um, applying for a job and being headhunted for a job. If somebody headhunts you for a job, then there's going to be certain kinds of dynamics that will never be there if you are one of many candidates that happens to get the job. Now, often is the case that you have to apply and you have to be rejected several times before you get chosen for a particular kind of position. So I'm not telling people don't apply for jobs that they want. I'm saying that there's a different dynamic, a dynamic that's created. And so I think that you're ultimately in a weaker position if you're having to do a bunch of stuff to try to bring people back to the table. That's not a good position. I'd rather vote with my feet, right? I think people are going to do better by voting with their feet. If they're not seeing what it is that they would like to see in the market, then they need to go and find what it is that they are in search of. So, I would argue that I'm saying the same thing that BGS said, which is ideally, if you're going to stay in a certain location, then you have to bring the women along with you. You have to get them to come back to the table. But one of the advantages of a global marketplace is that is no longer required. If you're a brother that makes, we'll say, $50,000 a year, that makes you the part of the top 1% of all income earners on the planet. And so
I like that you said that, because a lot of times people make it seem as though, oh, it's only a high percentage, well, it's only a very small percentage of. Okay, so let's talk about the context, right? We're talking about a particular context here within a particular community whereby certain things are not working out, right? And the man, okay, that's what the manosphere is about. Like, okay, what is to be done, right? And we know about the knowledge of what is, right? And then you need to get your economic piece up. And then to that question, people say, I can't make 150K. You just expanded it to the global market and say, if you're making 50K, okay, then you don't have to be stuck here. Now, if you want to be stuck and you want to do it for the culture, right, that's on you, right? But go ahead. But shout out to the super chat, by the way, Stuart D. Knight author. Okay. Or Stuart D. Knight author. Thank you very much for the $5 super sticker. Thank you very much. Yeah. So Dr. Thunder, go ahead, continue your thought, land your plane. Basically, kind of reiterating the fact that, hey, if you're going to stay behind, then you need to bring them along. But if we go out of this if then logic and go to the level of facts, which is, okay, the facts on the ground are such that you probably don't want to do that, because as your previous point, you're going to be in a weak position if you're in an environment where you need to be coaxing people to the table. Shout out to another super sticker from Gregory, Scotland. They're coming in hot and heavy at the end here. $5 super sticker. Go ahead, Dr. Thunder. Finish your point.
Hey, what's happening, Hamilton? I see you in here. And shout out again to the super chatters. Thank you very much for the support of the show. Thank you for supporting Black Male Media. Super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. Also, I'm migrating much of my music content, all of my music content, over to my new music channel, Dr. Thunder Music. Spell out the word doctor. Just do a YouTube search and you'll find it. Please subscribe over there. All of the music content will stay on this channel. However, it will be behind a paywall. So those are several ways that you can also support. But yeah, the $50,000 thing, being part of the top 1% of all wage earners on the planet, that changes the sort of perspective, because here there's this, you're a dusty, you're a bum, you're broke, you ain't got no money, the the viewpoint of a man that makes that salary is not going to be considered part of the elite or part of the, upper crust or whatever you want to say. So what men have always done, what people have always done in the history of the world, is to change their locale so that they can take advantage of whatever they have. So if they have a particular quality or assets or a skill, and they move to an area where that asset, skill, those resources are in short supply, then they can make a life for themselves. And that has always been the case. It has only been recently criticized because it actually has the power to actually upset the apple cart. It actually has the potential of actually changing certain dynamics that the powers that be do not want changed. And to the extent that you see people vehemently and loudly going after passport bros and talking about how they just look trying to find dirty feet women and take advantage of people that don't have anything. Well, it's interesting because it's hard to think of something that did not take advantage, did not exploit, did not use leverage as a way to benefit oneself. It's very hard to think of something that at some point that wasn't the case. And we're not talking necessarily about exploiting anyone. We're just saying, look, I have more resources than you do, so I'm probably going to look like a better option than someone that has less resources. Right? And that's just how the game is played. And people should not feel bad about that. And folks should not feel as though the only choice they have is to play ball in the community. A community that has consistently rejected and has shown that it is not going to do things to prioritize you. It's never going to prioritize you. So, get your passport.
Shout out to you. Get your passport, he says. Get your
Yeah,
passport.
and
He
it's a
says,
passport, bro.
so
I'm having a great time. So, shalom,
he's having a great
everyone.
time. Shout out to the Orthodox Christian Muslim, does whatever
Wow.
for, yeah. Yeah, so great conversation. Featurism being a global phenomenon manifested in different ways depending on the specific local power dynamics, right? The perceived proximity to power. We talked about that. We talked about the fact, what does this have to do with male agency of the individual? Okay. We really boiled it down, and it seems like when you boil everything down as far as men are concerned, this is not something to be preoccupied with. Don't get tied in by people's notions of shaming you or talking about well, you for the community, for the culture, for this, for that. That is not your place. Okay. You're supposed to be creating a community based on standards and whatnot. You're not supposed to be following something that does not meet your requirements or your compass. Shout out to Game Changer. Okay. We all have our different ways of measuring and of balancing the scales. But yeah, Dr. Thunder, you can go ahead and take us out. I think this was a lively one. Next week on Dr. Thunder's channel, going to be a special edition of Case Closed. So it's going to be a closed panel. Yeah, it's going to be close to you, LAR. It's going to be close to you. It's going to be close to Kaiser as well. We're having a special vacation show, but for some special guests. But to the regulars, might as well let you know that next week you can take a vacation. You can put in a PTO, pay time off. We'll send you a check. Okay, time and a half. But come through Dr. Thunder's channel, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, special Black History Month Case Closed edition with a special all-star guest. Thank you very much, Dr. Thunder. Thank you very much for the panel. Kaizo,
Yeah,
Game Changer. Shout out to Toya. Go ahead.
yeah, and I'll just say who the panel is going to be comprised of. It's pretty much the doctors of the space. So Green Gorilla and Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Dr. Ronald Neal. Of course, I'll be here, and then also Alan Obi. and BGS.
Does he have a PhD?
So, he does not. He does not.
Wow.
Neither does BGS. But it's going to be a very heavy panel, and of course Ike will be moderating. Got to get a Black History Month one in, because it is Black History Month. So I'll see y'all later. Be well and take care of yourself and each other.